right, that's video of a huge fire engulfing an oil depot in Ukraine after it was bombed by Russian forces. Ukrainian officials say the oil terminal in the city of Chernihiv was shelled by the Russian military, including a huge tank of diesel. That thick black smoke could be seen for quite a while outside of where that happened. Now, the Kremlin calls this, or is still calling it, a special military operation. But inside Russia, access to the BBC's Russian language services has been restricted by the Russian government. RT America also permanently shutting down its operations here in this country, laying off all their staff. Let's get an update now live from Moscow and welcome in Giles Gibson, who joins us from Moscow. Giles, what's the latest?
Yeah, that's right. We are just seeing this crackdown on independent media, both foreign and local, really continuing. The website of the BBC Russian service inaccessible, and we're also seeing it playing out in the local media as well. You've got Echo of Moscow, a really long-running, really well-known, really treasured radio channel here in Moscow, that being taken off the airwaves. You also have TV Rain, which was a TV channel. It has previously been taken off the airwaves. It was still trying to broadcast through online platforms such as YouTube. That is now shutting down as well. And the editors of TV Rain actually had a bit of a message for their final broadcast. They played out the ballet Swan Lake right in the final few minutes of their broadcast. This is a joke, really, that many Russians will get immediately, because that same ballet, Swan Lake, was actually put across state TV here in Russia back in 1991 when the military were trying to were launching a failed coup against the then president, Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah, the Russian sense of humor, I guess, for lack of a better term, there is understood. And I would imagine, Giles, the Russian people know that they are losing access to these outlets. Is there any more indication on an upswell of resistance from the Russian people?
We certainly have calls for there to be an upswell. We have the opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, currently languishing in prison. He's put out a message via his lawyers onto social media calling for there to be daily protests here in Russia. In particular, he's calling for there to be a protest at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday local time here in Moscow. So we are just going to be watching really closely to see, firstly, what sort of numbers come out onto the streets after Alexei Navalny has issued that call, and secondly, what the response from the Russian authorities, from the Russian police, is going to be to that.
And real quickly, one last question, Giles. There's been reports that Vladimir Putin might institute martial law. Of course, the Kremlin denies this, but is there any indication from what you're seeing right now in the streets of Moscow that might be a reality?
Well, the Russian parliament has approved a piece of legislation that makes spreading what they deem to be fake news about the Russian armed forces, making that punishable by a pretty steep fine or even up to 15 years in prison. However, at this stage, the Kremlin still denying these reports that there is going to be martial law declared here in Russia, simply saying via the president's spokesperson that those reports are a hoax.
Okay, Giles Gibson for us live in Moscow. Giles, thank you for your reporting. Joining us now to discuss this is former Trump 2016 foreign policy advisor, Newsmax contributor George Papadopoulos. George, great to see you.
Thanks a lot for having me, John.
All right, so, we're seeing Vladimir Putin try to stretch the limits of his ability to crack down on information, the free flow of information. Obviously, the internet's still a thing there in Russia. And he's objecting to this being called a war. He wants to call it a special military operation. But I don't think the Russian people are that stupid.
Yeah, and look, and Putin, he is a man of war. He's a man of nationalism, and he's somebody that really wants to reconstitute the Russian Empire. But I think he's also somebody who's tremendously miscalculated. And it's not simply based on the international unity that has come about based on this illegal invasion of another sovereign country, including probably the most emboldened and united NATO along Russia's eastern front, tremendous sanctions which have crippled the Russian economy. But probably the most dangerous aspect for Vladimir Putin's own survival in this case is not NATO's military, but internal discord within Russia itself. There are reports that there are thousands of people protesting daily. Of course, they're being arrested in mass scales in Russia, but the Russian people don't seem to be buying this so-called denazification incursion into Ukraine, and they see their cousins in Ukraine, fellow Orthodox Christians, being bombed and maimed. In what respect to their own interests, they don't know. So I think you are going to continue to see this crackdown in Russia itself, and it's going to be very interesting to see how much the Russian people can take.
You know, I think Lindsey Graham was right about one thing, and that's that, you know, it's going to have to come from inside Russia, the internal pressure so that Vladimir Putin actually feels like he has to pull back. But, George, you know, we're all wondering, has he miscalculated? This is all part of his plan. He says it is. You never can, I guess, know what really is inside Vladimir Putin's head. The other thing, too, we wanted to talk to you about is we have these Russian rich kids now rebelling against the invasion, at least on social media. That includes Lizaveta Peskova, who is the daughter of the Kremlin spokesman. He was just sanctioned, I think, this week, and also Sofia Abramovich, whose dad is now selling the Chelsea Football Club in London. George, is it a coincidence that these rich Russian kids are now protesting the war as their trust funds seem to be in jeopardy?
Well, clearly, the international sanctions are biting, and you just gave two very important examples of what some of these oligarchs are having to do by divesting their investments in Western countries and in Western enterprise. And of course, this is going to have a trickle-down effect on the kids and the spouses of these oligarchs. So, of course, they would prefer the status quo where they're able to travel to Monte Carlo for shopping on Saturday and then head off to London for the week on Piccadilly Circus instead of being essentially a prisoner within Russia. Of course, Russian airlines today have been sanctioned around the world. Even really travel outside of Russia today if you are a Russian citizen. So of course, kids like this who are used to the good life and used to all the pleasures of the West are going to want to condemn this war. And I think it's more so for their own self-gratification, more so than the unfortunate pictures that we are seeing coming out of Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, they could, if they really wanted to protest and have an impact, they could show up on the border of Poland and maybe assist with the refugees. That might have more of an impact. But, you know, this is this generation. They never really feel threatened until they feel personally threatened. And, of course, it is good being an oligarch's kid, I guess. Looks like, you know, from those pictures at least, life is good for these kids.
I think it was very good, and unfortunately for them, though, I do believe that this new reputation of Russia becoming an international pariah is going to probably affect the Russian morale even more so than the 4,000 reported troops that have been killed in the battlefield of Ukraine. The Russian people and Vladimir Putin wanted to be viewed as an even-heeled partner with the West. At this point, the equivalent of Russia's activities in Ukraine is tantamount to not only an economic war, but now a potential hot war within Russia itself. And I don't think the Russian people, including the oligarchs and their children, want to be viewed as level-headed with North Korea's dictatorship or China's totalitarian state. And I believe you are going to see more and more of these protests coming out simply for their own self-interest. They should have been more public. If they wanted to be public and to help refugees leaving, going into Poland and other European states, they should have tried to do that. They should have made public videos appealing to the European Union and to Vladimir Putin to stop this. They did not.
Yeah, I mean, this is that hashtag activism we see so much from this generation.
Yeah.
Not enough in this case. George, always great to see you. Take care.
Thank you, John.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.